It's 12 o'clock, and we're going to not follow the agenda. We're going to go into, I think you guys have a presentation you want to show? So let's go right into the Voices of Hope, and then we're going to go into the Paris Foundation, and you guys can leave, and then we'll talk budget stuff, unless you want to stay. I think that'll work out, instead of boring you with the budget items.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, come on down and tell us what you got going on.
I think we're going to present that here.
I did those screen share, so.
Right.
So we need
There we go.
And then I'll try to get rid of this on the side of the screen, give you a quick
Okay.
sense.
Awesome.
If I can do it. Okay, good. Thank you. Good. Thank you.
All right, so Mayor, Commissioners, Town Council, thank you for the opportunity, individuals in the community, for the opportunity to present to you our data of 2022. So a little bit about what Voices of Hope does. Next slide. Our mission is to advocate for behavioral health disorder prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery resources, eliminate the stigma of addiction through outreach events and education, support all pathways of recovery. Our vision is to end the cycle of addiction, heal families affected by addiction, and change the perception of addiction for all. So how do we do this? We utilize the stages of change model. So I actually had the honor of staying 3 days with Dr. DiClemente himself, who was one of him and Prochaska developed and trained the remarkable stages of change. I believe they were cancer researchers who utilized the stage of change, but it can be for any behavioral change. Now, how do we use the stages of change model? So we have our Cecil Harm Reduction Program. What can you expect from Cecil Harm Reduction Program is we are located at 411 West Pulaski Highway. What we do there is we do peer engagements and services. We do outreach walks. We do 3 walks in Hollingsworth Manor. We do 1 walk in Fire Creek. And we also have our wound care program. So the first stage of change is pre-contemplation. We have to have a stage of change where there is no change behavior in order to assess what stage we're in. So what do we do in pre-contemplation stage? We have our syringe service program, otherwise known as SSP. Syringe service program is where we give out sterile equipment for people who are using active IV drug use. So, how many syringe service programs encounters have we had with our SSP program? This is total, this is Cecil, this is not Elkton, and when I use 21921 zip code, that does not mean the town of Elkton at all. Just to give you guys a reference point of exactly the criteria in which we collect the data. So out of the 13,776, we use a unique identifier for our program. There is no names, no other identifying information by what zip code that you use or that you're staying in, gender, race, and that sort of thing. So as you can see, 9,206 did identify as 21921 zip code, which again is not reference to the town of Elkton at all, but that is 66.8% of the individuals that we serve. So with that, with the syringe service program, we have 2 in Cecil County. One is at the Cecil County Health Department, and one is at Voices of Hope. So as you can see, our monthly return rate, meaning we're getting the syringes back out of the community, off the streets, from these people, is our average monthly return rate is 165.77%. Again, the health department does have one, so they are not open. We are open all 24 hours a day, so we do get a lot of returns, so I just want to make that clear.
So how does that work? Do they bring a syringe and then you give them a fresh syringe? Is that how that works?
So, thank you, good question, Mayor. So it's not really an exchange program. What we utilize is we give out bags of 10. So there's 10 syringes, 2 cookers, some tourniquets, some fresh sterile equipment, and some water. So every time they engage us, that's all they get. So they don't necessarily have to give it back, but what we do have is we have sharps containers. So we have sharps containers, fit packs, all the way up to 3-gallon sharps containers that we give these individuals if they have a household or if they have a housing challenge, they live behind Walmart, whatever the case may be. We give them these utensils and then we see them daily. So we encourage them by giving them only a certain amount of supplies that we're gonna see you again tomorrow, and see you, and talk to you, and plant that little seed, and I get that into a little later in the thing. So it's not an exchange program per se.
I understand.
So we also have our wound care program in harm reduction. I'm sorry if you guys can't see, sorry about that. So our wound care engagements were $589, and that is by a registered wound care nurse from Johns Hopkins. His name is Jason, he was great, you'll see pictures in a little bit. So out of those 589 encounters, we had 360 unique individuals in that program in the year 2022. For those of those that identified 21921 zip code was 161, so that's about 44%. Again, not specific to Elkton, the 21921.
What is a unique individual?
So unique individual means that that person has not been duplicated. So that is 360 unique individuals, meaning that's we haven't seen them in duplication.
New people.
Yes, new people. Yeah.
And what does the wound care program, or is that, you gonna talk about that later, or is that?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
So what we are seeing now and again, full disclaimer, these pictures may be disturbing. Just fair warning for those of you on the team. So this is what we're seeing. I know. So I'm a person. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I did, didn't I? So my name is Aaron. Sorry about that. My name is Aaron. For those of you who don't know, but I know most of you, I am the program and data manager. But also, I am a person that's been in recovery since January 2nd of 2015. I was a heroin addict for 23 years. My co-facilitator over there is Jen Romano. She is our Cecil Community Recovery Center manager. Sorry about the introductions. I was a little nervous. So now what we're seeing, when I was using, right, it was heroin. There may have been a little bit of other stuff, but now what we're seeing is this thing called xylazine. Xylazine is an equine tranquilizer, and some individuals are having this reaction to it, which as you can see here. Now, even though these are not injection site wounds, and again, I'm not a registered wound care nurse, but I've been around Jason long enough where I think I can adequately interpret this. These are not injection site wounds, but they're because it's being injected that these wounds are appearing on some individuals with this xylazine. Now, so why do we have Jason? So I want you guys to think about how many times we see this a lot. If I were to gauge this, 10 being the most dramatic that we've seen, that people have needed amputations, to like a 1, this is about a 6. This is about a 6, okay? So this was the initial contact after 2 weeks. This is what it looks like. Now you can see how it's kind of moving, right? So that's why it's not injection specific, but it is because it's in their people's system that this is what it's doing. It actually eats the flesh, okay? And again after 2 weeks, and then again after 2 weeks. So this is what we're seeing.
Is this a new additive from?
So what they're saying, the xylazine is much cheaper, it's not scheduled yet. That's why it's not scheduled.
Where's it coming from?
You can buy it online. So people are buying it online. It's an animal tranquilizer.
So now ketamine was then, it wasn't scheduled, but now it was back in the 90s and early 2000s.
I believe I saw this on the news
Yes.
a week or so ago.
Yeah.
Right.
They called it
It's
trank.
Yes,
Yes.
opponent strength, correct, Commissioner. Yes, yes. So we've been engaging with these individuals. I think, I want to say this about Cecil County and Elkton specifically, but we've been kind of ahead of the curve because, as you know, we're right in between Baltimore and Philadelphia. So everything comes right down the 95 corridor, so we are kind of ahead of the curve, especially when it comes to Maryland. So now they're starting to see in Baltimore, Philadelphia, I think it's coming out with an article. Yeah, so this is kind of what we're seeing. So that's how we engage individuals in the pre-contemplation, again, active stage, right? Active using stage, that's how we're engaging with them.
Now, is the finger falling off, or?
So I believe that digit was lost to a previous.
Okay.
But if you were to think about it, right, what would that take with the hospital costs? You know what I mean? EMS response, whatever the case may be, we're just trying to lower that burden on everybody as far as financially.
Do these wounds appear on other parts of the body?
Correct.
All over.
All over, not just the hands?
No.
Correct. I mean, we've had some individuals, unfortunately, like literally from here to here was nothing but bone intended with the hand dangling. Unfortunately, he did have to have it amputated. But that's just to give you a perspective of some of it. It's not everybody, right? But some of the things that we're seeing.
Can I also say a lot of these people don't want to go get treated because of the humiliation and so they engage with Voices of Hope because they make them feel comfortable and valued. And not that, I mean, it's just, even dealing with my officers when they get somebody like this, like it's shocking. I heard the gasp in here, it's shocking, right? And so when they are dealing with that all the time, like they just don't want to go get treatment, and as bad as it is and as painful as it must be, so.
Does this type of reaction, which I've really never seen before, does it deter their use of that particular drug?
Not in my opinion. I don't think so much. Right now, we're seeing it in almost everything, so you wouldn't be able to, as a drug addict, to go find, like it'd be hard to go find drugs without tranquilizer in it at this point in time in this area.
It's being added?
Yeah, because it's so much cheaper, so they're just cutting it.
Oh.
So that's,
Oh.
it's another thing, so it's like, you know, and again, right, so I'm not a drug dealer, I don't know, but putting that in the supply helps reduce the cost for whoever's providing the substance, as well as creates a duplication of effect. So xylazine is a depressant, so in fact, what we're saying is, you know, individuals that are not only don't want, because of stigma, whatever the case may be, but they can't stop using in chaotic use. And now what we're finding is we're coordinating treatment, which we'll get into a little bit inside with these people, but treatment facilities are having a hard time detoxing off xylazine because it has high anxiety, blood pressure, so they don't know how to treat it anyway. So that's why we're kind of blasting it on the news and everything like that, so we can kind of get ahead of the curve, because we can treat the opiates, methadone, Suboxone, for, you know, detox management, but xylazine, what I'm hearing, the closest thing is much like a benzo detox, so they give them Klonopin or Xanax to help ease them off that. So it's very tricky. It's very tricky.
Yeah, and don't forget, these drugs don't come with like ingredients on it. You have no idea.
They have no idea to
They don't know what they're getting and what
And
has it
it's-
and what doesn't. You just, the assumption is now that everything has it.
Okay.
We're fine, yes, and we do have, thank you, Chief, we do have the RAD program, so it's a drug testing program, so we encourage any individuals that are active using not to give us the drugs, but whatever the drugs was in, and we can send that away to the state and they can test it. So what we're finding now is everything from opiates, there's no heroin anymore, so anything from fentanyl to methamphetamines to even cocaine does have xylazine in it. In fact, some substances are coming back to just all xylazine.
Can they add that to marijuana?
Well, I would imagine they could try to lace it, but I'm not really sure on that specific with cannabis. So that's how we engage individuals in pre-contemplation and active use. So what do we do from them once there, right? Once we plant that seed. So contemplation side is when they're kind of like, okay, now they're kind of thinking about it, right? So I want you to know when I refer to a peer, we're actually certified peer recovery specialists. Our organization has about 95% certified, extensive training, and obviously with also lived experience, right? We've all been there. So out of the 3,348 SSM peer encounters, I want you to notice that they walked in to the center. 3,000 times, over 3,000 times, they walked into our recovery center. Out of those that got peer support, what does peer support enable? That means, hey, can we sit down? Can you have a, you know, we offer everybody a water and a cup of coffee, right? But very few are just like, my boy, he's gotta go. Okay, it's all right. You know what I mean? But for those few times when they sit, have a cup of coffee, we get to talk to them. We get to talk to a peer, right? So that's what peer support encounters are. As you can see, it's kind of low in this stage, right? So out of 21921, again, we only know them through unique identifier. 6% are getting that support. Now, when we say total fixed site support, is that time how many we engage individuals like, okay, we understand that you're injecting, right? You know how to inject safely. You know not to inject the same spot over and over again. You know how to use naloxone. Can you train somebody that you might use with also how to use naloxone? When you go and you use, can you not leave it in your bag where no one can see it? Can you put it out in the open? Can you not lock the door? We're trying to give them overdose prevention tips, right? So that's more like with a fixed site encounter. And do you need any other resources? Do you have wounds? Would you like to get tested for Hep C or HIV? Whatever the case may be. So that's what we call a fixed site encounter. So again, out of the fixed site support that we've given, 62% did identify as 21921, again, not Elkton town specific. So, this number right here, 6,972 times, if we add the 2 times, they come to our fixed site at 411 or 409 West Pulaski Highway. I want to be very candid with you all. I'm in recovery. I do not like giving out syringes. I don't. I also do not like going to these neighborhoods identified as 21921 and have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old little girl tug on my shirt and say, hey, mister, can you show me how to use naloxone? Because my parents fall asleep a lot and I can't get them up. I also don't like the fact that I get emails daily about overdose reports. And then I pray to God when I open it, it's not a fatal. And then I pray that I don't know them, or know their parents, or God forbid their children, if it was a fatal. It's not something we'd like to do. It's something we have to do to get 7,000 people to come to us where we can give them help. So I want everybody to understand that that's why we do what we do, to get them to come to us. If you guys can show me another way that I can give 7,000 active users to come where help is needed, please tell me. I would have it on everybody's desk at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. But
What
this
would
is
they
the only way
do?
we know.
What would happen if you didn't give out the syringes?
How will we engage? So I can ask you, great question, I can ask you for a cup of coffee. I can see Mayor Alt down in Atlas and say, hey man, you want to talk for a while? People in active use, they're recluse. They hide. They might be hiding from the law. Their family might not want anything to do with them anymore. You know what I mean?
Where do they get the syringes if you don't give them to them?
You can buy them.
So they can buy them at any store, they can go to other, yeah, so.
Yeah, you can go to CVS and buy certain.
So when I was
Without
using.
prescription?
Mhm. You say diabetic.
Yeah, that's what I used to do.
Or, is what I was doing when I was back in Philadelphia, you just go to Philadelphia and where the drugs are sold, there's people selling syringes.
Ah,
So this is a way, so our syringe service program is really a platform for engagement that I can sit there. So 7,000 times, I want you to think about all those seeds that were planted where they're talking, they can not only see and hear, but they can also feel what recovery looks like. So 7,000 times, they're one in front of us, where you can say, man, I've been in your shoes. You know what I mean? There is a different way. We just plant that little seed. Plant that little seed, and we see it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So how do we move them from this? So just to give you a little bit of contrast on what I'm talking about, and how we utilize this harm reduction model. What you will see here in the light purple is how many harm reduction referrals, meaning how many times we've engaged with individuals through a harm reduction program, the SSP program, and whatever, naloxone distribution, that we've actually referred to treatment, right? So even though we made another referral to high level care, you can kind of see, we have, and just to give you contrast, I also gave you Hartford, our Hartford locations numbers for contrast, right? That we only implemented our SSP program in July of 2022. So you can see the number. Listen, I'm just going to be honest with you. If I put a neon sign out there on Route 40, hey, if you need substance use treatment, come in here, we wouldn't have a lot of people. I'm just going to be very honest with you. A lot of people would not be driving and like, oh, there's your substance use treatment. This is how we do it. So you can see a few months that we've had exactly the number of referrals, exactly the number we've coordinated treatment for in the months of March, April, and May, right? And you can see it on Hartford County, just for contrast again, that we don't have many treatment navigations, even though we've been doing treatment navigation for a year there prior to our syringe service program implementation. We're not getting very many numbers. So the next slide will kind of show you, right, that we have a lot of harm reduction referrals means a lot of treatment navigation. And that's how we're moving them through those stages of change, right, getting them the help that they need. Not a lot of harm reduction referrals, not a lot of treatment navigation. And again, those are averages. So, once we get them through there, right, now we're kind of in the action stage, right, we had them think about it, we engage with them, active use, they're thinking about it, we planted those seeds, right, how do we get the action? That's really where change happens, right, is in action. So that brings us to our recovery center over there, which is open 24/7, 365 days a year. What can they get at the center? Peer support, treatment navigation, recovery house navigation, shelter navigation if needed, recovery house funding, in-person peer support, and we do have support meetings. We have 9 a week at our location in person. We're also in partnership with the Cecil County Health Department to provide CATCH. Those of you who've never heard of CATCH, it stands for Cecil Addiction Treatment Coordination Hotline, which is 24/7. Anybody calls us on the phone, and listen, with CATCH, with our program, if they don't have insurance, no problem. If they don't have transportation, no problem. They don't have clothes, no problem. Everything that I tried to do when I was an addict and why I didn't need treatment, we've made it possible. So there's really no excuse. There's no more excuse now, right? So that's what we do. So the numbers for our center, for everybody in the deciding and doing stage, right? We've coordinated treatment 416 times in year 2022. We've connected with 270 of those individuals during their inpatient stay. So we don't lose contact. It's not like, oh, we got you to treatment, see ya, we hope you make it back, goodbye. We stay in contact with those individuals, obviously in the partnerships with those treatment facilities we pride ourselves in, right? So, 776 transportations we provide. And I want you to know that 90% of those is probably through a peer. When we don't have a peer to provide that transportation, we do have to rely on taxi service. So I just want to point that out, that we provided 776. And when we do that, we don't care if it's to your treatment, from the hospital, to get to your first support meeting, to go with you in your first support meeting, whatever that case is, we're going to provide you transportation. You know that can be a barrier in not only getting help and staying in that stage, but also maintaining recovery as well.
Thank you for explaining that, because I was going to ask what was your mode of transportation. Now, they have other peers that transport them, so what type of connection do you have with the peer group who's going to come and assist you?
So those are our peers that provide transportation. We do that. So,
And I understand that, but what kind of connection do you have with the person who's going to be the transporter to the connection at the facility where they are?
so if I'm understanding you correctly, so if someone comes to us for treatment navigation.
I have a problem, I come to you,
Yep.
and I'm there, so how do you connect me with one of the persons that's going to transport me? Somehow you all have a connection.
We do the transport. So if you come to me and say you want help, I'm gonna give you a, motivational learning techniques, and you're gonna find out if you have any wounds, anything kind of going on. We're gonna set you up with the right treatment provider. You're gonna do an assessment right there, right? Once they say, okay, can they be here in half an hour? Yes, they can. I'm going to transport you. I'm going.
Gotcha.
And if I can't, if it's backed up, whatever the case may be, then we might have to rely on a taxi for that service, correct? And once you're done in that treatment facility, and you need to ride back to Elkton if you want to go to a recovery house, whatever the case may be, we're gonna go pick you up. Or if we can't provide that service, we will call it that. Okay, so the maintenance stage, right? This is the last stage, obviously maintaining recovery. So what do we have for that? So we provided at Cecil Community Recovery Center, we provided over 23,223 services.
Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you use Key Lime for your taxi? You ever use those?
We used to use Key Lime a lot. We had some difficulties, so we use Haney, which is he's a private company. His name's Paul.
Just Paul.
Yeah, he has people in his family that are in addiction or recovery, so he works with us with rates and stuff, and he understands what we're doing, so we tend to use him more when we have like no other option, we'll call Key Lime.
So out of the 23,223 services, 6,852 were new. Now, I want to throw caution to that. Our peers are great at motivational interviewing. We're great with individuals. Data collection, So, you know what I mean? I just want to throw an asterisk on that, you know what I mean? It's close, but about 7,000 new or unique individuals that we provided services for. Now, peer support, so we have a lot of, we have a call log, right? So if anybody that's in the maintenance stage of recovery, just say, hey man, can you just call and check up on me? Or hey, can we check up on you? We put them on a call log, and our peers call them daily, weekly, bi-weekly, whatever they want. So when it says peer support, that's one of our certified peer recovery specialists reaching out to another individual to provide that support. Again, how many, we do have meetings located here in Elkton, so 6,048 individuals, non-unique, meaning not new, they could be duplicated. They attended our meetings, support meetings, which we have AA, NA, Smart Recovery, we have Recovery Dharma, we have an All-Pass Recovery, which is a non-abstinence-based recovery support group. So over 6,000 people attended our meetings that year. And our meetings are located at 409 West Pulaski, and then right here in the town of Elkton, at our administration building, 224 East Main Street. So on behalf of myself and the organization, we do appreciate, we're open to any questions. Our recovery house. I'm sorry, I forgot. Our recovery house. So we do have 2 recovery houses, which we did open in February of 2022. So far, we have housed 27 men, and we've housed 17 women. The average length of stay for men is 47 days, for women is 75 days. And again, those are located at 110 and 305 Elkton Boulevard, in the Immaculate Conception area. So, we do thank you for your support. As always, we do appreciate the opportunity to share with you all today, and we are here for any questions that you may have.
How are you funded?
All grants, great question. We are all grant funded. We do some fundraisers.
Grant funded,
Grant funded.
Okay, so you're busy grant writers, huh?
yes.
Yes, so Jen Turk, our executive director, that's pretty much all she does every day. She's in the grant world.
What about the two houses that you have? How are they funded? Same thing?
So since we did a lot of fundraisers and we do have some supporters who do donate, I don't know, we were talking about Recovery Podcasts, they do a weekly donation to us. We haven't been able to raise a lot of money, so we did purchase those two houses. But what we did was we credentialed them through what's called MDRN, Maryland Recovery Net, which funds individuals in recovery houses. So once we became accredited with that state credentialing process, now individuals can be funded through the state to stay up there for, I believe, up to 16, possibly 8 weeks. If they don't, we do fundraisers, every year, and we will fund not just our house, we'll fund you wherever you want to go. You want to go to Baltimore, you want to go to Hartford County, wherever you want to go, we're going to fund you, because we know how hard it is to maintain recovery.
Does someone stay there and manage the house?
Yes.
So we have a recovery house supervisor who supervises both house, and then we have live-in house monitors that are like elder members of the house who help make sure everyone's home for curfew. They have house meetings weekly. You have to have a meeting sheet signed. You can't just sit around all day. You have to have a job or volunteer. It's like a mix between like going from a 3.1 into an Oxford house, if you know what that is. So there's like a middle ground in there where there's like stability and accountability, but you also have control of yourself. So you can drive, you go to work, things like that.
What she's saying is between the 3.1 is it's very structured. We're structured in a way that, listen, if you're not engaging in active, what we consider active recovery process, meaning you're going to 3 to 5 meetings a week, you know what I mean? Whatever your recovery pathway is you are actively engaged in, you're not going to be a good fit for our house. Because we're going to ram recovery down your throat. And if that's not your process, well, there's other houses, other recovery houses that may be more suitable to you. That's a good explanation.
Do you have any statistics on your success rate, percentage-wise?
Commissioner, I wish I did. So we've been going back and forth on what is success, right? Is it 6 months maintaining recovery? Is it a year maintaining recovery? So through our process, it was hard to not only gauge that, but once individuals get back into life again, life happens so quick, right? Kids come back, jobs come back, and we have a hard time keeping up with those individuals or contacting, reaching out. Maybe they didn't have a phone when we first engaged them, now they have a phone, so how would we know? So it is very tricky, but I would love to have those numbers. But what I can say is there's, throughout the Voices of Hope organization, there's been 5 individuals that we've engaged in harm reduction that work for us now. You know what I mean? There are maintaining recovery and there are miracles in this process. So.
Yeah, I could tell you stories of our success, just like watching people go from like coming in completely homeless, nodding out in our lobby, to now coming back to visiting us, telling us about how they're in school again and have jobs and have their kids back. You know what I mean? So it's amazing to watch happen.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Aaron, Jen, thank you guys so much for what you do. Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I think it opened all of our eyes up.
Learned a lot.
We
A lot
did.
more than you
So I did give Michelle a copy of the PDF if you guys ever.
Thank you.
Perfect. Love to have it. I know Charlie was writing a lot of notes.
He could take that afford.
Thank you. Michael Brandon, come on down. I'd like to talk to you if I could.
Bring Dave Strasburg from the firm, our engineer.
All right. So Mike's going to give us an update, or Dave's going to give us an update on where we're at, what we have to do, how can we move forward. And I think the one thing that you'd sent me an email on was that for all of us to kind of think about is how can we enter into a long-term lease so you can get this built on that site. Am I correct, other than being part of MRDC?
Yes, that's correct. 2 years ago, at the height of the,
Yeah.
2 years ago, at the height of the pandemic, on the heels of our third flood on Bridge Street location, our building was sold out from under us, and we had two months' notice to relocate. We had for some time been discussing the opportunity that might present itself in Hollingsworth Manor. As Voices of Hope deals with people by treating them, we found that there was a lack of prevention resources. And so we looked around and we saw where is the community, the portion of our community that's hardest hit by addiction, by all of these other things, the consequences of poverty and abuse and neglect and trauma. And it was obvious to us that Hollingsworth Manor was the location that we should be looking at if we wanted to break that cycle and make a generational change in our community, really see an end to homelessness and addiction, that we needed to start with those most vulnerable, and those are our children and young families and folks on the edge. We received permission to set up essentially a trailer from Robert's Extra Space on the lot next to the Family Education Center, and we've have been operating there for just a little bit over 2 years, and I might say without incident. We have not had to call the chief to come over, except to come over and play soccer or volleyball or kickball or whatever with the kids in the community. We've sponsored or co-sponsored a number of community events on that site with MRDC and the Hollingsworth Landing Association, the Residents Association. And essentially we've been building a sense of community and credibility with the community by serving an evening meal, a takeout meal, just as we did at our building during the pandemic, where folks can come up and receive a meal and take it with them for their families. We average between 100 and 160, depending on the time of month and other things going on in the community, per night, meals going out 7 nights a week. We have fish fries, we have cookouts, we have concerts, we have picnics, as well as the meals themselves. But long term, we really believe that erecting a community center there, a multi-purpose center, will ultimately benefit the community, not just in Hollingsworth Manor and Elkton Landing, but the entire community. I'm sure you're familiar with the news that we received through Upper Shore Regional Council, a substantial grant from the Department of Commerce, which will enable us to provide job training on site at that location tied to the food service industry. What do? We feed people. It makes sense for us to be able to train people who can then learn in a commercial kitchen and then go out into the workforce and take those skills with them. So a large portion of what we're going to be doing in the building itself will be training, job training, and enabling people to get out into the community and fill these jobs in the food service industry. We'll continue our evening meals. What we're proposing to do with the building itself, will provide an auditorium setting similar to our Bridge Street location, where we'll be able to seat 150 people comfortably at tables, and then auditorium style for church services and concerts and community programs. Well over 200 people will be able to come into that facility. The key for us is that we're within walking distance of the most vulnerable population in our community, and that's been important to us. For us to move forward, we need to, though, have assurances for our potential donors that what they're investing in this project will last. Right now, we have a sublease at your direction. We have a sublease with MRDC for the time being, but we are seeking a more permanent solution, longer term, so that folks will be able to donate and realize this building will be here long after we're gone, serving the community in whatever ways we're able to provide. As far as programming, I don't want to bog down on that, but if you have questions about what we're proposing to do there or some of that, I could address that, but really what we brought Dave to do is to talk about the site preparation and what we need to do for you as the town, what's required for us to move forward, get a shovel on the ground, and get this thing built. Our financing is coming along. Our bank is ready to go with us. We have donors on the sideline who have said, get us this assurance and then you'll move forward. Right now, we're at about 60% funding for the entire project, and it's quite feasible that we would not have to borrow at all for the construction loan. We may be able to raise the balance by the time the doors are ready to be open, and that's our goal.
So let me ask some direct questions to the board, and then I'm going to ask to administration. Because I think we gave direction that we were all okay with this. Is everyone still on board that this is the way to go, correct? Okay, so then we're good there. Okay, so the second part of this is I know that there's a lease with MRDC, and we're not exactly sure how that works. So Lou, can I get you to maybe get with John and discuss how we can rearrange that lease or break it off to where we can get the Paris Foundation entered into a lease? Because I don't know what the term or the language is. I think that it was mentioned to me that our current lease talks about the whole site. So we would probably have to amend our lease with MRDC so that we could enter into that agreement with the Paris Foundation. Am I right on the right track, or am I going the wrong way here?
No, I have to examine the lease agreement and see how much land it encompassed. That was, that whole Hollingsworth Manor Family Support Education Center, the contemplation was the lease that owned property to them.
Yeah.
And I know the Paris Foundation had a trailer on the sublease, but we'll look into that. But given the board's support, every effort will be made in order for you to proceed at some point. We need the site plan and everything. I think that's what Dave's job is.
So I think your site plan then would have to go to Chip and his team so that they could review it. And I'm not 100%, does this have, would it have to go in front of the Planning Commission?
Yes.
So it'll have to go in front of the Planning Commission for them to move forward also. But do you have it on disk that you can show us what it looks like, the concept, or you got it on your
I
phone?
don't, and I apologize for not. being
No,
fully
that's okay.
Um,
I think the positive news is we're in here,
Yeah.
you know, we're in,
We're in the
right?
meeting, right?
We're in, we're here.
So, this is a rendering that they,
Okay.
if you wanna pass it around.
All right.
How, yeah, how is this
Two-story
next to
building.
the other?
So, we have completed our survey of the property.
Okay.
So this is the copy of the survey, everything's located, utilities are located, deposit suite. So you have the existing parking lot, the existing building, stormwater management on this side. So the Paris Foundation is thinking about building on the right side of the building. So, after this meeting, we could be in a position to start seeing what will fit. The discussion has been, do we share parking, do we do all new parking in front, do we try to do some parking in back where volunteers can come around back and park and access the back of the building with food, et cetera. So we have to see what fits and what layout is going to work. So
But they're not going to be attached.
then we have talked about possibly a breezeway, and I think there's a breezeway shown on that picture. And again, we have to start working with the architect, and now that we have the location survey, just see what will fit, meeting the town setbacks. We're gonna have to address stormwater management, so any new impervious on the site will have to meet current stormwater management requirements.
Do we know if any of the houses that are to the, I guess I would say to the east of that building, is there anything for sale? you know?
Nothing I know of at this point. The corner property was just bought by someone because it's being renovated now, and they took out a lot of the old fencing and some of that.
I'm just trying to think if we needed more additional space, then that might be the direction, if that's the side you wanted to go onto that side, right?
Certainly.
Might be something just to keep in mind, I mean.
What are your hours gonna be for operation? The
Um,
same as they are?
No, because we'll be operating as a community center, so we'll have programs and activities going on during the day, up and through the dinner hour, evening meetings, like when the Residents Association have their monthly meeting there. Sheila's Pantry will be moving into our building, because the trailer there, the administrative trailer is going to disappear. So MRDC, they've been our greatest advocates. Chris Benzing went to bat for us with Commerce, really helped seal the deal for us to get that grant. So they're excited about us being on site there, and we're certainly going to coordinate our educational programs and childcare, after-school programs, mobile clinics. We're working with the Union Hospital and the Health Department now. We're a working group to develop, to take some pressure off the ER by providing screenings and that type of thing on site. But with the mobile unit coming, Voices of Hope has been coming and setting up in our parking lot and establishing it. So the hours are just going to depend on what we have scheduled, but it'll basically be open from like 9 to 9, that type of thing.
So there's no overnight?
No, there's no residential piece.
What do you need from us, other than working with us?
At this point, just the lease situation, terms and conditions, so that we're on the same page with that. And then we can then go back to our owners and say, here's the situation, here's what we see.
The lease agreement that we have with Maryland Rural Development is for the entire property. And so it's identified in the lease. And then a subsequent sublease between the Paris Foundation was between MRDC and them, not necessarily that's what we have a party to it, because we're the owners. So I don't know if they'll be amenable to a section of that land being separated in the sense for a separate lease or not, because it's not a subdivided property. Correct. So we'd have to figure out how we do that.
Well, they certainly went to bat for you for the money. I would think that they would be amenable to work with that. So does Sheila's have a separate lease?
I'm sorry?
Sheila's Pantry, does she have a lease? The trailer?
She's come under MRDC now, under their 501c3.
Okay.
So that they could qualify for Maryland Food Bank.
Okay, understand. Well, listen, I think this team up here is all in, and Louis is going to work on it to see how we can get that amendment and amend it, and let's move forward.
Can I ask if
Yeah.
if you guys have, any of your own thoughts on the site for layout, or what you might like to see us, think about in the design?
I think you'll get some of that from the Planning Commission once you get there from the concept standpoint, but I think, I guess my knee-jerk reaction, would you really need a lot more parking?
Well, you'll need parking and you'll need the stormwater management by creation of additional impervious surface
Okay.
from the building.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to figure out what our parking needs are gonna be.
Is there gonna be like something for kids? That you're gonna be doing, or is there already something there?
Yeah, I believe right now there's a playground there. We would not be trying to impact that, but do you have any other?
Well, there'll be programming for children. There'll be, we're bringing the arts. We're going to have a room designed for music and art, so that the kids can take lessons, community choir, a lot of the things that extracurricular activities that a lot of these children don't have access to because of transportation, parental support, finances. We're going to bring that into the community. We have volunteers waiting to come in and give guitar lessons and keyboards and teach the kids how to use the creative, give them creative outlets rather than destructive outlets.
That's great.
How many square feet building are you looking at here? Have you-
the one plan I passed around noted 7,500 square feet on the 2 floors.
Okay.
So, but like I said, it's
The footprint is 75?
Its footprint 75, we're looking at 10,000 square foot.
Okay.
Because the front third will be actually the 2-story, we'll have rooms upstairs, classrooms, conference rooms.
All right, hey, you guys will be working together.
Try to make it happen, that's the important thing.
We're good.
Do you guys have any programs aimed toward educating children on staying away from drugs, not getting into them in the first place? Do you talk to them about that?
Well, that's where we hope our friends at Voices of Hope will be able to come in on a regular basis.
You plan on doing a program like that?
Yeah.
Plant that seed early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working with the Judy Center from the school district as well. We've already had input from the Early Childhood Advocacy Council. I represent Parents Foundation in a lot of those groups and organizations, so we're part of the discussion. And just as we did on Bridge Street, where we would have folks from the hospital come over to the health department and do screenings and FC testing or provide eyeglasses, we're going to expand on that, use the facility as really a community resource for those types of things, give people access to services that crossing Route 40 makes problematic for so many.
We have a duty center at our neighborhood community center too.
Yes.
They operate there too.
They're definitely interested in looking for some additional space. Great organization. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. I think we got the 2 topics off. Okay, discussion on fiscal year 2024 budget presentations. I think everyone has in front of them 4 different proposals, budgets. Let's start off with Department 120, the administration, if we could.
Our department, and I'll compliment Michelle, put it together. He has reduced the expenses of the public service. Less money up top of our administration offices than the 23 budget. So I think everything else in there is,
Lou, was there any assumptions on increases in salaries or anything at this point?
I don't believe so.
Steve, there was none of that, correct?
No.
Okay.
Usually one of the very last things, so I didn't.
So you put down it's definitely less than we had last year. Breezing through this, no additional employees in the administration office. A little bit,
If I may, on page
We use
4,
Page?
even though we did have an overall decrease,
yeah,
but if you look at page 4, just to let you know, the request for FY '23 for professional services, that was $6,000, but as of January 5th of this year, we were at $9,878, and that's directly related to the expenses incurred pursuant to the TIF district. So we're probably going to be getting a lot more expenses associated with input for bonding and TIF.
so we may want to budget, maybe we take that money that you subtracted from and add it into that.
That may in fact be the
Right.
case, I just want to give you that.
And
insight.
that'd be fine, maybe just put more into the legal, then we'll follow that through the course of the year. Everyone good with that? Postage, nothing for travel and meals, advertising. Well, there was, let's see, general liability, insurance on the vehicle, I think this is all pretty standard. And I'd ask the board to take this with them and take a look at it and before we get to the final side, but certainly doesn't appear to be anything above and beyond here.
yeah, I'm hanging on to my 2017 Suburban. So.
All right, good, good. Training and education, convention, and, okay, so the conventions and expenses, the mayor and commissioner's dollars aren't included in this.
No, sir.
Okay. This would be convention and expenses from the administration staff. Very good. All right. Thank you so much for preparing that for us, and we'll take a little closer look at that. Okay, let's go to Department 150. which is the municipal buildings. And would this be Jimmy's
Yes.
section of it?
And what Jimmy and I came up with, between the two of us, there's a $2,000 overall increase in his budget specifically for, if you think about, the neighborhood community center came on,
Mm-hmm.
and Jimmy, even though they have cleaning over there, but he does do additional cleaning for, like, when he does the gym floor and so forth. And if you look at page 2 of his budget,
Yep.
in the FY '23 request was $2,000 for overtime for him.
Yep.
And as of when the time we worked on this, January 12th of this year, he was already at 1964, halfway through the year. So that's the increase that you see in the municipal buildings budget, just the
Well,
anticipated increase in overtime.
I would say, make this comment, I'm okay with that request. In fact, I would, when he does, listen, the appearance of our flooring in our municipal building looks fantastic after he's able to strip and clean those floors. And it's very important to have that look, especially in our municipal building, as well as in the Parks and Rec building. So whatever we have to do to keep those things looking at the top of their game, I think that it's what we should do.
On top of the game's gonna cost us about 15 grand, I think, for a machine to do the floors over there.
Is that in here?
Looked into that, but I don't
Not
think
yet, no,
that's,
it's
is that
not in there yet.
capital?
You don't
But
have
the,
that cost in there.
Because we have ARPA standard allowance, we'll have capital funds available to purchase that.
So would that have a machine, that would mean we keep a machine here and we keep a machine over there?
An older machine here, but
That-
they'll need, they got, to do the gym and everything, they need a good machine over there.
Very good.
The machine itself is $15,000?
He told me between 11 and 15, not counting all the chemicals and stuff that goes with it. But he's gonna get a price and proposal, and then of course, Mary will put out a rec, but it's between 11 and 15. I gave you the high mark, so you won't get shocked. You know, but they're not inexpensive pieces of equipment.
I would tell you,
Is
I
that right?
purchased one for our little store in Northeast a couple years ago, and it was used, and it was from a rental company, and I know that we paid $4,000 or $5,000 for it, and it still doesn't work very well. So I would say you want to make sure that you get something that's going to work. It's blowing our fuses and everything else, and it's been a nightmare. Trying to save just that little bit hasn't worked out very well. Okay, let's go right into, I think we can move along with that one, and we'll give you any input after we review it a little closer. Chip, you have your building and zoning fiscal 2024. So we'll breeze through this thing. Do you have any additional bodies?
No additional personnel. There's a few small increases. Postage is one of them. That's gone up. The advertising for the board of zoning appeal cases, we have to add a little bit more for that.
Okay.
And the supplies, the price of everything has gone up, so basically, there's a little additional from last year.
There's no, and I know we have to send certified letters out or we wouldn't get any responses, but is there any change in that process? Is there, when I say that, you can't email a certified letter today, can you? No.
Not that I'm aware of. There's another method that's cheaper for sending letters, but when it comes to the grass letters, our charter code says it has to be a certified letter. Now, we could look at changing that, I don't know.
For what?
Might save a lot, but.
What would it be?
You wouldn't send, it wouldn't have to be a certified letter. You would just send a,
A regular?
yeah, so how does that work in court? Not that we ever make it to court on those anyhow, right?
No, usually the ones we end up cutting, we get paid for. If we don't get paid, we send it to the tax sale from Cecil County.
How does that work, John? Can you give that some thought? Do we have to send certified letter to them?
At some point, I mean, at the point where we would initiate litigation,
For a lien?
you don't have to send it certified, but that's probably the cheapest one to do it. problems with certified is you send it to Ann Smith, and Betty Smith signs for it, and now who's Betty Smith? Is she an adult? You know, so you end up personally serving that person, put it in their hand. So, I don't know when the registered certified mail is.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess in our charter it says send them a certified letter.
Yeah, it says so, yeah.
So we have to send them a certified letter. So what we're saying though, if we took that out of our charter and just sent them a regular letter, either they're gonna comply or not comply, or would they say, well, we didn't receive it? But if Betty Smith signs over it, then the other Smith, it doesn't really matter, does it? I don't know.
Do we ever hang a tag on the property that says?
Oh, yeah, we hang tags to try to save on the postage, and if we don't get compliance, then we have to send a letter. So we try to do that, yeah.
I don't, really, it's not
So
a big deal in the overall scheme of things here.
when you put a lien on the property then for cutting grass or whatever,
Well, yeah, finance sends it.
Plans to send it to the county for a tax sale.
but that's only if the property's sold.
No, it
Or
could
is
be
that-
over tax sale for the amount owed.
So
We
you-
would send a letter to the county indicating that whatever the address may be owes how much money in grass cutting.
So they tack it on the bill?
That would be sold, potentially sold
Oh,
at
they'll
tax
sell
sale.
the property because there's a lien on it? Even though their taxes are in good standing?
Yeah, because they're not in good standing with the town of Elkton for grass cutting services.
Most of them will pay it.
But they'll be, right. And
They'll
they're even
show
getting a
up
letter
or
in
they're-
advance that it's.
Usually they'll pay for it before they'll have the property sold. So it's like a leverage for us.
Right.
I don't think too many people have sold
They're
their
gonna lose their
property
house
for
for
$300,
the
you know, so.
So they become aware of it.
Oh, yeah.
I
And then
I
they
would
become
almost
aware
like to see that grass cutting charge increased. I know
It
we,
just increased.
It may be more of a deterrent that way, once word gets out.
What is it now?
What's it, 210 is the middle on that?
210 plus administrative charges,
Yeah,
I think.
so we just upped it a couple of years ago, but you're right, they're not meant to be a competitive fight, we want to use that as a deterrent, so people cut their own grass. Yeah.
Well, we
don't want to be in business with cutting grass.
I've heard through, I'm gonna say the grapevine, was that some of the commercial, when you have absentee landlords, they'd rather receive the letter from you, have us go out there and cut it, and then they wait the process, because it's done, it takes 2 months before the whole cycle goes through, and it's so much less for them, for us to cut the grass.
Well, that's a good incentive to raise the price.
I think we should raise it. I really do. I think it should be, it could even be double that amount, quite frankly, on any commercial lot.
We'll prepare a resolution
I know,
on that.
sure will.
So would there be two separate
Yeah.
charges, one for commercial, one for residential? or
No,
what?
we don't.
Typically, you don't do
30 days.
commercial, they generally take care of the problem.
Typically,
The only one we have an issue with
I think
is
they have to
Dollar
measure
General.
yeah.
And I think we've finally gotten to the person that we need to, we'll see what happens when it starts going.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good direction to go. Are we charging enough for the Board of Appeals cases?
Well, we raised that.
Because if we're paying, we gotta pay counsel to be there, correct?
We could look at raising that. I mean, it's, right now, it's $358 is what we charge. And that's been for years, it's always charging. Advertising goes up, legal costs go up. Seems like a lot of money. I mean, we have made some changes so that people who just want to build a deck that's a little bigger than they're allowed to,
Yeah.
they don't need that variance anymore. So it's, the bulk of the cases are for signs, which is commercial, so I think they could withstand the increase.
Well, that's something you might want to look at.
Okay.
I think we'd be supportive of that. I don't want to hit the homeowner up for every, like you said, like for every little fence, but if it's a sign
Well, it could be
What do you mean,
related
for-
to commercial.
related to commercial,
Yeah.
Okay.
all right. Well, court reporter is what it is, and any new equipment, Chip?
Not really. Storage boxes, that's not new, it's just the price went up on those that we have to store the plans in.
Very
No
good.
new equipment.
Anyone have any
Has time changed, for the, post office calls name problems, 10 o'clock, they open now, right?
I don't think there's been any issues.
At night? Post office at
Well,
night?
we have to get the water bills in between 10 and 12, that's their window for the bulk mailing, but I didn't know
No, I
the
thought,
hours
I
changed.
went in there and I thought it said 10 o'clock, because we went to the mail something.
I'm there every morning at 9.
Was it a Sunday?
But you can't sleep over.
Maybe they saw you come.
They might have locked the door on you.
Maybe I read it wrong, maybe I didn't get to sleep that day, okay?
Yeah,
I
there
thought
it
it
is,
sounded
9 to
There's a
5.
sign in there that says that post boxes won't be, you can't expect your mail in your post box before 10, maybe that's what you saw?
I plead with. I thought it was 10 o'clock.
Anyone have anything else for Chip? Thanks, Chip.
Chip.
Andy,
Maybe they had to shut down.
we got you on the agenda,
Yes, sir.
on this item
Yeah,
anyhow.
I go by and check to make sure.
All right, we got Andy Rodriguez. Andy, is there any additional personnel that you're requesting?
No.
Anything that we should be aware of in here that's anything different?
Nothing additional. I just shifted some of our budget. The overtime, the previous year there was budgeted 4,000, but that I believe is not necessary because I'm there now helping Renee. And I foresee that potentially going down as well. The other areas that I shifted some money was from advertising to contracted services. I shifted $1,000 from there to contracted services and also from the overtime amount. The reason why is the contracted services we have, as the board knows, we implemented Paycor last year, and they have a lot of bundled services with that, and included would be job postings. So I actually, when I post a job through Paycor recruiting, and actually post it Indeed and Glassdoor and ZipRecruiter as part of the package. So that's why we're able to reduce the advertising costs, so it's saving us money there, and we have more services that we can provide. So right now, our budget is the same from last year. It's just moving some money from one bucket to another, just because the need's not there and the need's greater in another area.
Thank you. I wanted to mention to the board on the very last page, and I really don't want to get into a lot in depth about the last page, but one of the things that I want the board to think about this a little bit, because it's been brought up a couple different times to me. So you go to the middle of the page and it talks about the compensation increases for employees over the last 8 years. 2014, 3%, 15, 5%, 3% in 16, 0 in 17, 5% in 18, 0 in 19, 5.4 in 2020, 3% in 21, and then we did the $4,050 bonus in 2022. I guess what I'd like for the board to think about in the next week or so, or 2 weeks, is that I'm okay if we put together a proposal for the future boards, maybe just make it whatever the consumer price index is each year, that the employees could, that it could be put into the budget for the employees so everyone kind of knows. Or it could be that we just do it the way that we've always done it. If we got some money, we're able to do it, and if we can't, we can't. I'm very flexible with this, and I look for help from the board, because I always say, I've always been a 1099 employee. I've
Yes.
never been, the more I sell, the more I earn, and it's a little different in the municipal world. And I think everyone deserves as much money as they can earn. I just do mine a little differently. I got some more rolls of duct tape. So I need some guidance, is what I'm asking. I'd like to know, and I don't need an answer today, but think about it. Do you just want to make it like a flat number again? I think last year my thinking was in 2022 was that we have individuals that work for the town of Elkton that have reached their maximum level on the step grades. Unless we can move them into a different grade, I don't think that it makes sense for them. I don't know how you can give them the cost of living, unless I'm incorrect in my understanding of how the step grade works.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Okay. I actually talked to Commissioner Gibbons not too long about this. By the way, the discretionary bonus that was given by the board last year, I thought it was a great thing to do. We did have a survey with the employees, and some of the employees, I think, you noticed the survey's results at the bottom of that page. They prefer a percentage that was noted by the employees. It was an anonymous survey, so the employees were able to actually give their input without fear of, hey, am I going to be retaliated against if I submit something negative? And so the majority, I would say 32 out of 51 employees that responded to their survey, 69 surveys were sent out. It was not to the EPD because they're under a collective bargaining agreement. So it's basically for the civilian employees. Out of 69 or so, 51 responded. The majority of those 51, 32, did not, they prefer percentage-based. I do agree with you, Mayor, that I think that the town should consider some kind of increase every year, depending on the amount of revenue that you have available. If you don't have it, you don't have it. But a COLA, for example, if you do a COLA and you don't take consideration of changing, updating the wage scale at all, but you just give a COLA, what does that mean? That you're going to work with a wage scale that's 10, 15 years outdated? Then you're going to have problems hiring. We had that problem with the EBD last year because that wage scale hadn't changed for a while, and that's why we made a big dramatic change, and it resulted in good results. I think they had a banner year last year with recruiting and retention. But I'd be happy to work with the board and Lewis on some type of, at least a protocol that I can go by, because in the handbook it states compensation increases are given by the town at the discretion in consideration of various factors, including performance review. That's all it says in the handbook. Well, that's very vague, and it'd be nice to have something that's less vague.
And that's probably vague because nothing has been done over the years to make that more meaningful to both the town and the employees. I did read this at the bottom there, in my own personal opinion. I don't know when you allow employees to make decisions concerning bonuses, monies, and everything else.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Over the years, that has always been the thing. Whatever they've been given, somebody's going to always gripe. You're going to hear somebody talk about the police department, which has nothing to do with them. That has gone on again this year, which I've heard, but I never responded. My opinion, just how much you allow them to tell you what they should have. Because first of all, I think in order for them to tell you things, they must have the knowledge of the budget process and everything that goes into it and what have you. And being here for a lot of times, we've just seen a lot of things. Even employees reaching their final steps. I've seen where a certain department would allow their department head to, give them a raise. It's just been a number of things. There has never been anything concise. I guess we all agree, but whatever comes about makes it easy for the mayor when he does the budget and we agree or disagree, but I just don't know where they have the opportunity or should have the opportunity to stick their head in if you don't know about the process.
Legally, they have.
People see money.
Yes.
You got a raise, I didn't. I'm mad right now because that happened, but there should be a reason why.
Under the EEOC, the employees have a right to talk amongst each other, complain to management in regards to their wages. Concerted protected activities under the EEOC. So we may not agree in management, but we should at least listen and give them an opportunity to voice their opinion. But I digressed on what I was saying about the COLA increases and when
I did have one more question, so you hold your thought.
Yeah,
and also to tell us that they did a survey and this is what the results you've got. If you're gonna tell us that they did a survey, then you also should allow us to see what the survey was, so we know exactly how they answered and in what terms.
I can give you a copy before you
I don't
leave
want
today.
to copy now, I'm just saying in the future.
You happy? I'll be happy to give you a copy today of what was sent out, and in the future, I'll be happy to send that to you before it's sent out.
I'm out of your way, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I want to, Commissioner, can I just, so I don't
Yeah,
forget, because I
yeah,
just
yeah.
hit 55, I'm starting to lose some things. So want to mention on the fact that what the mayor mentioned, if someone reaches a max on the wage scale, and even though we know that wage scale is up to date compared to the competitors out there, one of the methods I think is a very good method, I mentioned the commission difference, is that if someone reaches a max, where in my 25 years in the HR, the max is the max. You don't pay any more than that. But one company I know that acquired one of the Little Sister Corps years ago in Richmond, Virginia, they had in their policy, which I thought was a very cool idea, was that if that person reaches the max, at that point, that employer decided on at least a one-time discretionary bonus for that year that they can afford. So for example, if the Little Sister Corps manager says, well, we're going to give the employees all 3% increase. If that, but two of the employees are maxed out on the wage scale, they would say, okay, we can offer them a discretionary bonus of $1,000 or $2,000 for that year, but they wouldn't get the percentage increase. That was a very good method, and that's what I would recommend as part of a practice in the future. I do have a sample policy that I'd like to share with the board sometime in the future.
I think that sounds awesome.
Yeah, because what you're
That
doing,
makes more sense.
it does make sense, because what you're doing is you're just extending your line. Right, your grade.
We also had a system in place where actually your current wage scale for the civilians is very much what we had at Lewis and Support. We had it vetted by Jackson Lewis, attorneys, a law firm, and we had a method where someone reaches the midpoint, they wouldn't get the full percentage that was granted. They would get a percentage of that percentage. Why? Because the start rate to the midpoint, the difference on the current wage scale now, similar to where I came from, is 35%. So if I started, I don't know, $10 an hour, the midpoint's 35% of that starting rate. I mean, that's a pretty large difference. So it kind of it controlled the acceleration of the wages, and it worked pretty well. And that's something that I would ask the board to consider as well.
Very good. Any additional questions for Andy?
I have one.
You forgot.
But did you want me to supply you a copy of the survey that I sent out?
No, when I saw this, I thought that was a result, I could be wrong, that we asked, what did the employees think? I mean, I thought that.
We
survey
did,
was
Commissioner,
done.
but it was all word of mouth, and word of mouth, you can't really go by that.
Well, no, that's what I mean, I thought that's what prompted the survey.
What prompted the survey, you're correct, Commissioner, because word of mouth is not enough, I needed some actual data.
Yeah.
And listen, I want to let you know, I like that you're sending out some things through the PayCor process for employees to give some input. Now, I've also heard from some employees that said, what is this stuff? I can't really, they're starting to panic, but it's just a change, you know, it's, sometimes we just change how we do business, right?
I own that, that's my fault, I will communicate better in the future in regards to that.
Yeah, but I like it. I like that we're doing these things. It only benefits everybody if we do these things.
I think so.
I want you to put, do they really like Mayor Alt?
Well, I did send that out, that will be on the closed session.
All right, very good.
No, they love you, Mayor.
Well, listen, thank you. I think we'll get some additional information from you, and I know that we're going to talk about that other
Yes, proposal.
When do we need to do that?
I think it's next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good. I had a couple questions and even a suggestion, and you covered it all before I even had to, so very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Does anyone from the board have anything else? Real quickly.
I do.
Yep, go ahead.
Can I Commissioner, or can I leave?
You can leave.
I attended the Rotary Club meeting on Monday night. There were 7 organizations there. I first time I ever attended, and it was downtown. And each of those organizations had an opportunity to give their spiel about what they do as far as people and services in the town of Elkton. It was very good. The Rotary keep their meeting to 1 hour. They had some food, and so many people got up there and talked about whatever. Rob Massimiano and the new director of the Elkton Alliance, I guess, were the first ones on board, and they gave a very good spiel about the upcoming fishing rodeo and what was done in the past and what we did for the kids. I just want to take this opportunity on behalf of Rice Church to give him a check to help with whatever.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
And not only that, all their groups receive money as well from the Rotary, but this is something that's an add-on to it.
Very nice.
Appreciate it, thank you very much.
Very good. And I guess I should have spoke.
You were representing the organization.
I might have said something, you might have gave me a check. John, where do we stand at with the Holly Hall property? Have we,
I have, I'm on the agenda for the board meeting on Tuesday evening,
okay,
and I have started working on the assignment. We need to have the foundation on board in regard to the things that we are thinking they should do. As we talked before, creating a new 501c3 is not a solution, because it's going to take a year to do that. It's going to take 6 months plus just to get a determination letter from the IRS. So it puts us outside the window that we're trying to get this done in. So we're closing in. Hopefully they'll be on board, and then I think we can move pretty quickly.
okay, that'd be good. I think that I'm gonna say the agreement that we have with the Cordish Company was only an email agreement. So I think at some point we need to probably firm that up with some type of understanding with him.
When Louis and I talked about it, I guess it was last week, I think we talked, and I'm not trying to volunteer him, but I think he said that he was going to do some sort of a memorandum of understanding between us and the Cordish Company.
Okay. That's good. Last week, or earlier this week, we went ahead and moved forward and we put funds into the Maryland.
Local government.
What was our rate that we received?
Well, it changes daily. The last rate I saw was about a little bit over 4.5%.
Okay, very good. Very good.
And we actually did that this morning.
Perfect.
A couple days to move it, but it's.
Yeah, they have their liquidity issues.
Well, they have, but
I know.
Very good. I know that Fulton will be here next week anyhow and talking more about the CRIM. I'm assuming he's coming, but that's fine. I think it'd be good for him to speak.
well, and I spoke with him, I said, that doesn't mean it's a dead end where the money is now, but we know that the very competitive rate there at Mill Vista is falling, and it's very liquid, it can be moved very quickly and easily. I don't know that was available with CRIM, but I don't know if you still want him to come present what.
Well, I think the board needs to see it. I met with him, you met with him, and I think we owe it to him to meet with him. And I think they need to be aware that we're getting 4.5% or whatever it is, because I don't think that number was even close at our initial. I know it's been going up this way, but to put it in perspective, when you have just use $10 million at 4.5%, that's $450,000 in interest. That's a lot of it. That's probably more interest than we've earned in the last 8 or 9 years.
Where it was,
Collected.
Fulton is like 1.21% for the month of February.
Yeah.
And so this is very, very different.
Yeah, and I knew that they were wanting to put us into this program, and I'll make them aware also that there should have been some other options for us to move that money in a short term too.
I know what, and you can explain next week certainly, but I know that one of the concerns is that it wasn't as liquid, all of it wasn't as liquid, and there were some CDs that would have been going out to different banks, and we had to plan a little bit of how long we could not need some of the money, 6
don't believe that they could have reached that number.
Well, you know, when we first got the ARPA money, we put in government interest money market account with Fulton Bank, and at the time, the pool was not as high of a rate as that was, but about 4, 5, 6 months into it, the pool rate actually exceeded what we were receiving in interest from the Fulton.
Very good. Any, yes, Jean?
Of course I do. Yeah. No, I have a couple things. We had a meeting Monday night, planning commission. So a couple things came up there. First one was Maloney Road, but I already talked to Chip yesterday about that building out there that looks like it's gonna fall over into the road. They had a concern about that, but he assures me that he's working on that and getting a lot of, you're not getting through to the.
Not getting an answer yet.
Yeah.
I will keep trying.
Yeah.
He's got to show up soon because
Yeah.
the as-built was done, and for his work, he's going to want to reduce his
Letter of credit.
letter of credit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot about that part. Yeah, I think that was excellent news to hear. What's going on out there right now is Patriots Landing, right? And for anybody that doesn't know, it's right across Muddy Lane from the golf course. I guess years and years ago, Morris Wolf promised them water and sewer, the residents that live out there. There's like 5 homes, building lots out there. They were all here again. They've been very diligent about showing up for these meetings. But they keep saying they're landlocked, you know. I mean, they're not officially landlocked, but you've got the golf course here, and then you've got the proposed development here, of course. And water and sewer on both sides of them now. So they seem to have an interest in being able to hook up to the water and sewer. It was told to them multiple times that they would need to be annexed into the town. But I wanted to let you know the developer did offer a solution. On one of the lots, just, I don't know what lot it would be, just north of where they live, he's willing to put a connection there for future development with an easement. So.
They would have to provide the easement, the homeowners across their backyards.
And they would have to provide one to be able to interconnect up to Patriots Landing's connection there. Would we have to do anything on the legal end for that? Or is that something Lisa would advise us on? As far as us being able to use that, or they're just gonna provide the easement? How's that done?
I'm not sure I'm following what you're describing, so it's hard to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jean, if you can help me out here.
When they go to annex and they request water and sewer service, you know, a plan would have to be developed, and I believe the developer offered, that offer may still be coming to the board yet, offered to help facilitate the hooking them in. But they would, because the sewer main would go across the backyards of the property, each property owner would have to put an easement across their property, or at least aside from the last one, anyone that would be connected along there would have an easement so that they know it's for the common use of the folks there, this easement for the sewer main that would connect these 5 houses to that manhole. And they would have to, you know, record that easement themselves. And then as far as the engineering and design and construction of the hookups and the hookup fees, that's something that would have to be discussed as to who would pay for that.
Okay.
Because I think the developer may have an interest in reducing their annexation agreement if they could facilitate that instead.
There is Bay Fund money available to help them with the sewer connection as well, to go from septic to sanitary sewer. It's up to $20,000 per dwelling unit.
That's not just in the critical area, is it?
No,
It's everywhere.
everywhere.
I know they were preferring.
Is that a limited time offer?
No, it's been out there for years.
Oh, okay.
It used to go through the health department, they switched it to MDE, which was a nightmare, now it's handled in Cecil County.
Okay, but as far as the current developer providing an easement there for us, you know, for future use, that'll all be covered in,
They were gonna provide an easement so that, you could have access to where the sewer manhole was planned
yeah,
on the open space in that community, in the planned community.
okay. So that once they provide that,
Then
we're
they
good.
have access to that,
We're
yes.
good,
Yeah.
okay, at any time, all right. The other issue that came up was the Muddy Lane. It's such a terrible road, we all know that. And the county, I guess they've been back and forth with the county about how to widen it. They've been asking the homeowners there if they were willing to give up 10 feet of their property and whatnot, and they're not in favor of that. But at any rate, they're talking about their safety, and one of the safety issues is their post office boxes, which are across the street. They're on the Gulf side. And they have to go across that road. Now with the increased traffic, they're even more concerned about their safety. And we don't own the road, but is there any way we can maybe look into the post office and see if,
Gina
on their
and his-
behalf, did you already talk about that?
Gina and I talked about it yesterday, I guess.
Oh,
And,
well, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, thank you
There's no issue at all.
very
We can
much.
reach out to the postmaster.
Yeah, I mean, if we could really push that along, it would be well received.
You want them to change where the mail's delivered?
Where their
Just
mailboxes
across the
are.
street to the front of their properties.
And we're dealing with the federal government?
No, the other the post
Yeah.
office.
Okay.
I thought that it would, if we could help and facilitate this, it would be a goodwill all around. And it, you know, it's definitely a safety issue. The only other thing I had was, we got a lot of water recently from Artesian because of turbidity in our water.
Yeah, our surface plant cannot process high turbidity water, never could. And we're fortunate that we can buy water, because it's well water. Theirs comes from groundwater. And we have to purchase that water when that plant can't operate at a high capacity in order to meet demand. It's always been that way. The demand's getting higher now than ever.
I know.
So we don't have a plant big enough.
Well, that's gonna be my next
process
question.
hundreds of thousands of gallons a day more.
Is there improvements upon a water plant that can deal with turbidity?
Imagine if we want to spend the $20 million, we could probably do it, but it'd be a lot cheaper buying water from Artesian, because the footprint where the plant's located is restricted. You don't have a big enough property. Say, well, when we had the A&R plant built at the wastewater treatment plant, we owned all that adjacent property, so we expanded over there. But the water plant is in a very narrow location to make it bigger, you know what I mean?
And that's what it would take. Weren't we talking about, we are doing some upgrades to the plant?
We've already done that. We put new filters in, tube settlers in. Filter media's been changed and replaced, and what we're doing now is putting UV system in. And they're having some trouble with one of them, but hopefully they'll get both those UV units going. But those units are for disinfection purposes. The finished water goes through there to kill off all the, for lack of a better term, the little teeny critters in there. And that way the water is more palatable for the public's distribution. But the turbidity is particulates. And if you run the plant at a higher capacity, it'll clog up everything, so to speak. So I don't know what to tell you, how to avoid. One of the reasons MDE required us to have the interconnection was in case we couldn't meet the demand. Hence, we spent $1 million building that line from the Delaware line to the Red Hill Reservoir. It cost $1 million just to build that. and we spent a couple $100,000 for easement through Delmarva property from the source where Artesian is, you know, Rosemont, whatever it is, that's where it comes from. So,
I guess I was hoping that any improvements that could possibly be made to the water plant wouldn't be $20 million.
oh, you're talking about, so it could process more water?
More money to do.
What I'm saying is the plant's too small for that, to handle the particulates that would be in muddy water. And I don't know,
It would probably be a
What?
200-foot, 300-foot process, and I agree with Louis. I was here trying to think how you could bring that water in, and unless they stair step it somehow, you know, like
I don't know.
like if you're mining gold, you clear out the,
one of the things that people don't realize that there's a valve there, right off of the, where the Hart Creek Dam is. It's the part where the raceway is, there's a valve there, and gate valves, and they can close. And they were put there, and so if you have a major flood where you have, you know, real thick water, the raceway between that location, right next to Doug Wilcox's house, so to speak, down to the plant would allow a certain amount of water, and how many millions of gallons of water in there, several million, I guess. And that water is cleaner than the creek. But the problem, the good part of that is if you had just a slug of bad water going through, you use some of that water theoretically, and to a certain level, because it, you know, has to be able to get into the plant. That would be a very short-term use because the demand's so high. And then when you open it up until the raceway again, another turbidity comes in, so.
it might be something we
You
could
can
look
pay an
at, you know.
engineer to
I'm just wondering,
look at it,
long-term,
but,
Right? Might be something we might want to look at some point.
well, we can.
Yeah.
There are many engineers out there who would welcome the opportunity to study that. I just didn't know how much.
I'm with you. I think for the price of pulling it from Artesian, it's probably the best way, but in the long run, 50 years from now, it might be, maybe there's more land we need to acquire if we have to. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind that you have another potential interconnection on Route 4.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you're gonna be drawing more water
I know.
from
And it's-
Artesian than you are now.
I guess I don't know the technical aspects of any of this to understand why we can't be more self-sufficient. And what we can do to make that happen in the future.
With fingers crossed, our flood project might have cleaner water coming down that creek.
That's a good
Well,
point.
Nice.
The
Just some-
watershed for that area, the Big Elk Creek watershed, encompasses 52 square miles.
I know.
Half of that's in Chester County, Pennsylvania, and it's along all the Amish fields, if you get my drift. And so I don't know, all the flood control in the world, it's not gonna keep those Amish farms not showing up down here. And in particular, of course.
I guess I was just hoping there was some sort of upgrades that we could make to the plant.
Eventually, we're probably gonna need it.
That would address that issue. I wouldn't know till I asked. So,
Lou's on it. He's gonna take a look
What
at
I'm
it.
saying, I can ask,
It's worth taking a
find
look
out
at.
if we can do an engineering study to find out how to do that.
Yeah, I think it's one worth it.
That wouldn't cost more than $100,000 or so, probably, to do an in-depth analysis.
well, couldn't you
Maybe
just
with 50,000.
find out if it's
Yeah,
feasible or?
yeah, let's take a look at it.
Okay.
I would like to mention about Muddy Lane. Now, Gene has moved forward with Will Matco and asked him to do a study of Muddy Lane.
I actually contacted the county, Stephen O'Connor, my counterpart of the county, planner at the county, and I suggested, I said, hey, how about with this next UPWP that's coming before WMAPCO, could we request a study of Muddy Lane? And he said, yeah, he could, said he just had to make sure the elected officials were on board. And we had a meeting, yesterday, with Wilmotco to discuss exactly what it is we're looking at with Muddy Lane. And I believe there's enough information there that they can include it in the UPWP for a safety study or some other type of study. They're kind of limited as to what they can look at. They can't re-engineer something with the Unified Planning Work Program because Wilmotco pays and hires consultants to do that. So they're limited as to how much the scope can be if they look at a road. But at least, we'll have another set of eyes looking at it. Both our comprehensive plan and the county's comprehensive plan had commented on Muddy Lane saying, well, maybe we need to kind of build a bypass over the railroad tracks by extending Delancey Road. And that was sort of a pie in the sky thing, but we need more analysis and something that might really work because the Tenby Ridge project can't go forward either with how it's up against the railroad abutment, the bridge abutment there. It's just an awkward road. And the road on the Delaware side, which is Dixie Line Road, is even worse.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was at the Cecil night and a couple members of the county administration. They're not too much in favor of any additional development on Muddy Lane unless there's core samples dug, or we take the road. Let me just put it that way. Either we take the road and we can do whatever we want, or they want to continue, I'm going to use the word roadblocks in front of us. And that's okay. But one of the solutions that they're looking at now is many years ago there was a bypass of Muddy Lane which went, initially it was an extension of Delancey Road, all the way to 279. Now I don't know where it ended up at on 279. But the new solution that they're talking about right now, since you've got development at the corner of Old Baltimore Pike and Delancey Road, the fellow that came in here, Mr. J, I think his name was, he has offered to allow, do an easement through the inside of that property where you could take Delancey Road, come on the inside of him, and then connect it into the traffic circle. Now think about that. So now Delancey Road will go here to the red light, but the bypass will go through his development into the traffic circle. Then the traffic circle, they want to take X amount of feet from the golf course side to extend the traffic circle itself. And then they want to go down to where the power lines are.
Oh, my.
Where the power lines are, and take the road through the power lines all the way behind the Hampton Inn, so the bypass would connect where all the undeveloped land is on Werner Road. It would come out at that end. That's what they're proposing, over the railroad tracks.
Who are they?
The county. So it's only 4 property owners that they have to be in touch with, and they already have 2 of them that has agreed to the bypass. Now, once again, I'm looking at this thing, it's the craziest bypass I've ever seen. I don't know why it's going this way, that way, but I've never seen it on paper to see what it brings to the table. But the new bridge would go across the railroad tracks at, down by the storage buildings on Warner Road. But I don't even know how you could go through the power lines. I haven't quite figured out a road underneath the power lines. I haven't looked at it, but this is what I'm telling you, this is what the county government said to me the other night.
The town has a submersible force main on the Delmarva property. And in order for us to expand on that, to allow for additional sewage capacity, we'd have to remove that and put a new one in and pay Delmarva, I don't know, several $100,000, and it's subgrade. And it's not even an improvement that would interfere with them. But I doubt if you'd ever get them to allow traffic through their high tension.
I don't know how they're doing it. I'm just saying what and this came right from
I can see it running
Yeah,
parallel
who did it come from?
off to one side.
It came from the, I'll wait until we shut the meeting down. Okay, anyone have anything else to say?
I would just like to thank Commissioner Gibbons, Reverend Brown, and Rice Church for their donation to the fishing rodeo this year. Thank you very much.
Very good. All right, this was a workshop, and I appreciate everyone attending.